In a time of great conflict, the Philistines rose against Israel. The Israelite army, terrified, prepared for battle, but a terrifying shadow loomed over them. Among the Philistines was a giant named Goliath, a feared warrior who challenged the army of Israel to single combat. He called for a champion from among the Israelites. Goliath challenged the Israelites for 40 days, but no one had the courage to face him. Fear dominated the hearts of Israel's brave men. In this moment of despair, a young shepherd named David arrived to visit his brothers. He heard Goliath's challenge and was indignant at the affront. David asked the soldiers why no one dared to face the giant. He offered to fight Goliath, challenging the disbelief of everyone around him. King Saul, upon hearing of David's courage, called him before him. David assured him that with God's help, he could defeat the giant. Saul tried to put his armor on David, but the young man did not feel comfortable. He chose to go into battle with only his sling and 5 smooth stones. With the sling in hand, David approached the battlefield. The Israelite army watched him with apprehension, uncertain about his choice. When David stood before Goliath, the giant scorned him, laughing at his youthful and inexperienced appearance. But David was not intimidated. David declared that he came in the name of the Lord of hosts and promised to defeat the giant. His words filled the soldiers with hope. In response to the challenge, Goliath advanced threateningly, but David prepared for battle. With faith, he placed a stone in his sling. David hurled the stone with all his might. The small stone flew through the air as if guided by a divine force, heading straight for Goliath's forehead. The stone hit Goliath squarely, causing him to crash heavily to the ground. Silence enveloped the battlefield, filled with shock and disbelief. The Philistines, seeing their giant defeated, began to flee in panic. David's victory became a legend among the Israelites. David, the young shepherd who defeated the giant, was hailed as a hero. His faith and courage became an inspiration for many. After the victory over Goliath, David's fame quickly grew among the people of Israel. The Israelites celebrated his bravery and sang songs in his honor throughout the cities. Women came out dancing joyfully, hailing the young shepherd as a true war hero. Yet David remained humble amidst the celebration. King Saul, impressed with David, invited him to live in his palace. David began playing the harp for the king, soothing his troubled spirit. A friendship blossomed between them, and David became a central figure in the kingdom, serving as a general of Saul's army. However, as David distinguished himself with victories, Saul's jealousy began to grow. Soldiers sang, "Saul has slain thousands, but David has tens of thousands." These words filled Saul's heart with rage and paranoia. He saw David not only as a friend, but as a threat. Saul began taking drastic measures. He tried to capture David by sending him into dangerous battles, hoping he would be defeated. Yet every time David fought, he returned victorious and more acclaimed by the people. The situation became untenable for Saul. In a moment of despair, Saul hurled a spear at David, attempting to kill him. David managed to dodge just in time, narrowly escaping death. This assassination attempt marked a point of no return in their relationship, and David realized he needed to flee. David then fled to the desert, where he lived hidden in caves, far from Saul's grasp. He was joined by a group of discontented and hopeless men who rallied to him in search of protection and leadership. David became a leader among them. During his journey, David had the opportunity to confront Saul in a cave. He cut a piece from Saul's robe, but chose not to kill him. This choice demonstrated his integrity and trust in God to handle the situation. When Saul awoke, David showed him the piece of the robe, proving he could have killed the king but spared his life. Saul was touched, acknowledging David's kindness, and for a moment, the king reconciled with his old friend. However, peace was short-lived. Soon, Saul resumed his pursuit of David, driven by jealousy. David had to hide again, fleeing through deserts and mountains, always seeking shelter and safety. His heart was troubled, yet he never lost faith. During his days of fleeing, David composed songs and psalms that expressed his pain and hope. These compositions touched the hearts of all who heard them. He always remembered God's goodness, even in tribulation. The men who followed him, inspired by David's faith, became brave and loyal warriors. They faced challenges, but always remembered they were fighting for a king who trusted in God. Together, they formed a fearless army. David's story resonated through all the tribes of Israel. He became a symbol of hope and courage, even in the darkest moments. People began gathering around him, acknowledging his leadership and unwavering faith. David knew he would have to face Saul one more time, not only for his own life, but for the future of Israel. He began to plan with his army, using his cunning and leadership to prepare a new strategy. Meanwhile, Saul, in his relentless pursuit, began to lose the support of his people. Tensions rose between him and his soldiers. Doubts about his leadership grew, and uncertainty loomed over his kingdom. Finally, the day of the final confrontation between David and Saul arrived. David's army stood aligned, ready for battle. The fate of Israel was at stake, and David's courage and faith in God would be tested once again. At dawn, the sun lit up the battlefield. David stood at the front of his army, a calm demeanor amid the storm. He knew that victory depended not just on military strength, but on his faith in God to guide them. David looked at his army, which was nervous, but filled with determination. He raised his voice, exhorting them with words of courage. "Let us fight bravely, for the Lord is with us." David's words echoed in the soldiers' hearts. They united, feeling a wave of hope. David's army was more than a group of men. They were one body, ready to fight. As Saul and his army prepared, a cloud of concern hovered over them. The uncertainty in Saul's leadership began to reflect on the morale of his troops. The soldiers whispered among themselves. David, sensing the battle was close, offered a silent prayer. He asked God for strength and wisdom, knowing he would need all the divine help for this challenge. With renewed confidence, David ordered his army to take their positions. The heat of battle began to warm the field, and every heart pulsed with the anticipation of the confrontation. As the battle commenced, arrows flew and drums echoed. David fought at the forefront of his army, his courage inspiring each one to fight fervently. The two armies collided with a deafening roar. The ground seemed to tremble beneath their feet as the combat intensified. The battle was fierce, but David held onto his faith. David then spotted Saul on the battlefield, surrounded by enemies. He realized that to end the fight, he needed to pull the king from danger. Skillfully, David fought his way to Saul, defending him from all sides. David's courage became even more evident as he fought on behalf of the king. Saul, surprised by David's bravery, began to recognize his true leadership. He saw that David was not fighting just for himself, but for the good of the kingdom. As time passed, the tide of battle began to change. The determination of David's army started to overcome the strength of the Philistines, who began to retreat. Seeing his army retreating, Saul's heart filled with hope. He finally realized the greatness that David brought to his kingdom, a strength that united the people. David's victory cry echoed across the field as he led his army to triumph. The defeated Philistines fled in fear, and the glory of God shone brightly. The trumpets sounded, and the crowd celebrated the victory. David and his army were exalted, and once again, faith in God was lifted among the people of Israel. After the battle, joy and celebration flooded Israel. The people united in songs and dances, thanking God for the victory. David was hailed as the new leader, and a renewed spirit spread among the Israelites. David, though celebrated, remained humble. He always remembered his humble roots and the need for divine dependence. In his heart, he sought wisdom to govern and guide his people. David's recognition as leader brought significant changes. Unity among the tribes of Israel began to strengthen, and they united under the banner of one king. The hope for a unified Israel shone bright. However, the shadow of the past still weighed on David. His relationship with Saul remained unresolved, and concern for the old king still troubled him. He prayed for peace for both of them. Meanwhile, Saul, consumed by jealousy and paranoia, could not accept the new reality. He saw David as a threat, and his mental health was deteriorating rapidly. The kingdom was in danger due to his instability. Saul's advisors began to notice his growing irritation. They tried to calm him, but distrust controlled him. The king's instability put the entire kingdom's safety at risk. Meanwhile, David organized his army and prepared to rule wisely. He sought to establish alliances and strengthen his leadership position in Israel, dreaming of a united and prosperous country. Allies began to gather around David, drawn by his vision and courage. They saw in him hope not only for a leader, but for a future that could bring peace and security to all. David, realizing the gravity of the situation, decided to approach Saul in search of reconciliation. He wanted to show that his intention was not to usurp the throne, but to restore peace in Israel. David sent messengers to Saul to express his intentions. He requested an audience, hoping the king would be willing to hear his words. Communication would become the key to resolving the tension. Saul, still wrapped in his conflicting feelings, received David's message. Though reluctant, a part of him wished to restore peace, but jealousy and fears battled within him. Enveloped in his emotions, Saul decided to summon David to meet him. The king wanted to speak face to face, a sign that there was still room for dialogue and reconciliation. News of the meeting spread quickly among the people. There was anticipation and fear, as the feelings between David and Saul were complex and deep. The outcome of the meeting could change the fate of Israel. David mentally prepared for the meeting. He knew he had to act with wisdom and love. His deepest desire was to restore the broken relationship and bring peace to his people. When David finally entered Saul's presence, the weight of the moment was palpable. He knew this could be the chance to repair a broken relationship, and his heart raced with anticipation and fear. David approached Saul with humility, showing respect for the king. He began to speak sincerely, expressing his desire for reconciliation. David's words were filled with emotion, brimming with hope for a better future. Saul listened intently to David's words, his features reflecting internal conflict. He began to realize that David was not his enemy, but a friend who still cared for his well-being. The tension in the air began to dissipate. David reminisced about the past, recalling the times they fought together, defending the nation. He spoke of the importance of uniting again for the peace of Israel. David's words touched Saul's heart, challenging his insecurities. Saul, increasingly moved by David's words, began to remember the greatness of the young shepherd he had once loved like a son. The walls of his heart, once closed, began to open slowly. David, sensing the change in Saul's heart, delved deeper into his words. He expressed his desire to serve the king and the nation, reaffirming his loyalty. This honesty began to break down any residue of distrust. Finally, after a long moment of silence, Saul spoke. With a trembling voice, he acknowledged David as a true ally. He begged for forgiveness, putting an end to years of rivalry. David, moved by Saul's words, did not hesitate to offer forgiveness. He embraced him, a gesture of love that marked the rebirth of their friendship. It was a new beginning in the story of Israel. With Saul's acknowledgement, news of the reconciliation began to spread among the people of Israel. Hope was born anew, and unity began to be restored among the tribes. David took his place once more among the leaders of Israel, now as a symbol of renewed hope. The Israelites united under his leadership, sharing dreams of prosperity and peace. Under David's leadership, Israel began to prosper. The harvests were abundant, and threats from enemies began to dissipate. Security in the kingdom brought peace to the people. Yet, even in times of prosperity, David never forgot his dependence on God. He sought guidance in prayer, recognizing that all success came from the Lord. The Israelites, witnessing his faith and devotion, began to want to follow David's teachings. He became a spiritual leader, as well as a warrior, guiding the people in worship of God. Stories of his victories and faith began to be told throughout the nation. David was not just a leader, he had become a living legend, a symbol of God's promise to Israel. As the nation prospered, David knew his role was to ensure safety and peace for all, fighting against any enemy that threatened his people. His determination remained steadfast in protecting Israel. However, the peace David had built would not be tested for long. Signs of a new threat began to emerge on the kingdom's borders. David knew that greater challenges were ahead. With peace reigning in Israel, David enjoyed a time of tranquility. However, he knew that the shadows of the past were never far away. Rumors of a new threat from a distant land began to circulate among his people. These rumors spoke of enemies uniting, forming a dangerous alliance, ready to attack Israel. The tribes began to grow restless, and fear began to spread again among the people. David, recognizing the growing concern, called for a meeting with the leaders of the tribes. He knew that unity was crucial to face the new threat approaching. Amidst the murmurs, he spoke with power and determination. "We must unite our efforts and face this alliance before they attack," David exclaimed with conviction. His words resonated, igniting the flame of courage in the hearts of his leaders. With renewed determination, the tribes of Israel began to mobilize. The walls of Jericho were reinforced, and the soldiers, inspired by David, prepared for the impending battle. The news of the enemy alliance spread quickly, and David's troops gathered in the plain, ready for battle. The army began to march, moving as one body, determined to defend their land. On the way, David turned to his army and reminded them of the importance of their faith in God. "Let us fight with justice and courage, so that the Lord may be with us." He raised his voice in prayer, and the soldiers followed. Finally, David and his army reached the battle site. The atmosphere was heavy, and the enemy forces could be seen in the distance. Tension rose, and the faith of each soldier was put to the test. David called his generals and outlined his strategy. He knew that victory would come from boldness and faith. "We will attack at dawn," he said firmly, galvanizing the hearts of his leaders. The night before the battle was filled with uncertainty, but also with preparation. The men armed themselves and prepared their spirits, while David walked among them, encouraging them. At dawn, the battle began with a roar. David's forces advanced boldly, fighting against the enemy alliance. As he led the charge with unwavering courage, David fought bravely, facing enemies from all sides. The determination of his soldiers inspired him as he continued to fight without retreating, guided by his faith in God. The battle intensified, but the courage of David and his men began to dominate. The enemy forces, disoriented by the determination of the Israelites, began to slowly retreat. With the advance of David's troops, a victory cry began to echo among the Israelite soldiers. They felt the hand of God in their struggle, their faith driving them to finish the battle. The victory was resounding. David and his army celebrated amidst smiles and shouts of joy. Faith and courage prevailed, uniting Israel once again under David's leadership.